They called her the bloodmark bastard. For 19 years, Elira Corvain had kept her head down in the Thornhaven stronghold, invisible among the wolves who should have recognized her scent but never did. She wasn't cursed. She was careful. The iron cuffs on her wrists weren't punishment. They were her choice. A gift from the witch who'd found her half dead as a child, the metal cold and deliberate against her pulse points. They didn't suppress her wolf. They muffled something far more dangerous. Tonight, the Eclipse Concord would bind Alpha Kyle Thornhaven to his chosen mate. The entire pack crowded into the ceremonial hall above, while Elira worked in the passage below, her fingers raw from scrubbing stone that would never be clean. She told herself she didn't care, told herself the ache behind her sternum was just hunger, just exhaustion, just anything except what it actually was. Then his scent hit her. Smoke and winter pine threading through the ventilation grate like a hand around her throat. She knew that scent. Had memorized it during stolen moments in hallways, brief seconds when he passed too close and her body remembered things her mind refused to name. The iron cuffs burned cold. No, not tonight. Not during the eclipse when the barrier between want and disaster was thinnest. She pressed her forehead to the stone, breathing through her mouth, willing her heart to slow. Upstairs, ceremonial drums began their rhythm. The chosen mate, Isolde Vex, beautiful and vicious and politically perfect, would be walking toward him now. Elira squeezed her eyes shut. The bond snapped into place like a bone breaking, silent, invisible. Screaming through her blood with such violent certainty that she bit through her tongue to keep from crying out. Above her, through layers of stone and ceremony, she felt the exact moment Kyle Thornhaven felt it too. The bond pulsed between them like a second heartbeat, invisible to everyone but devastating in its certainty. Elira gripped the stone wall, nails scraping, fighting the instinct to run toward him or away from him. She didn't know which would be worse. Through the ventilation grate, she watched Kyle Thornhaven stand at the altar. He'd gone absolutely still, his hand frozen halfway to accepting Isolde's ceremonial blade. The entire hall held its breath, waiting for him to complete the binding rite. His eyes swept the room, searching. Elira jerked back from the grate, heart hammering. The iron cuffs burned colder, frost spreading across the metal. Whatever they'd been holding back was waking up, responding to the mate bond like a beast recognizing its call. She heard his voice, low and controlled. Continue. The ceremony resumed. Isolde's triumphant smile carried through the grate. But Elira could feel him, feel the way his body had gone rigid, the way his wolf was tearing at his control, demanding he find her. She needed to leave. Now. Before the bond strengthened, before her scent gave her away, before... There you are. Elira spun. Kyle stood at the end of the passage, still in his ceremonial blacks, the binding incomplete. He must have left Isolde at the altar, abandoned the entire court mid-ritual. His eyes were dark, pupils blown wide. You felt it. Not a question. His voice was raw. She backed against the wall. Alpha. I don't. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides, not touching her but close enough that his heat radiated against her skin. Don't call me that. Not with this between us. The bond thrummed, begging them closer. Elira could smell his want, his fury, his desperation. Her body responded traitorously, the cuffs turning ice cold as something inside her strained toward him. This can't happen, he said, but he was leaning in, his hand braced against the wall beside her head. I know. Her voice broke. So go back, finish your ceremony, pretend you never felt it. His laugh was bitter. Pretend? His other hand came up, fingertips hovering just above her jaw, not quite touching. I've spent 3 years pretending I don't know your scent, that I don't track which rooms you've cleaned, that I don't make excuses to walk past you just to... He cut himself off, jaw clenched. 3 years. The words hit her like a blade between ribs. 3 years, Elira repeated, the words tasting like blood. You've known for 3 years and said nothing." Kyle's hand finally made contact, fingers curling against her jaw with a gentleness that made her breath catch. What was I supposed to say? That I'm bonded to a woman who hides behind iron? That my wolf recognizes his mate in someone who won't even look at me? Can't. The word came out broken. I can't look at you. Do you know what these do? She raised her cuffed wrists between them. They're not decorative. His thumb traced the edge of the iron, careful not to touch the metal itself. I've wondered. You're not packless. Your scent carries lineage, but no one can place it. That's the point. She was shaking now, the bond and his proximity and 3 years of unspoken want colliding in her chest. If these come off, if anyone realizes what I am, what are you? The question hung between them like a blade. Elira's silence was answer enough. Kyle's eyes darkened with understanding. That's why you hide. Why you've stayed invisible. His hand slid from her jaw to the back of her neck, fingers threading through her hair. What happens if the cuffs break? Everyone dies, she whispered, starting with whoever I'm bonded to. She felt him go still, felt the moment the words landed. But he didn't pull away. His grip on her neck tightened, possessive and doomed. Then we don't break them. His forehead dropped to hers, breath ragged. We ignore this. I finish the ceremony with Isolde. You disappear into the walls like always. We pretend tonight never happened. Yes. The agreement tasted like ash. Neither of them moved. The bond screamed between them, demanding consummation, demanding touch, demanding everything they couldn't give. Elira's control was fracturing, the thing beneath her skin pressing against the iron, curious and hungry. Kale. His name was a warning. You need to go, now, before I... The iron cuffs cracked. Not shattered, just a hairline fracture, barely visible. But enough. Enough for a whisper of power to leak through, enough for her scent to change, to flood the passage with something ancient and wrong and absolutely unmistakable. Kyle's pupils dilated completely. What? Run. Her voice wasn't entirely her own anymore. Go back to your ceremony. Bind yourself to Isolde. Forget you ever... His mouth crashed against hers. The kiss was violent and desperate, 3 years of restraint detonating between them. Kyle's hand fisted in her hair while his other arm banded around her waist, crushing her against him like he could merge their bodies through sheer force of will. Elira's control shattered completely, the fracture in her cuffs widening as power leaked through in freezing waves. He tasted like winter and want and terrible decisions. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the temperature in the passage had dropped 20 degrees. Frost crawled up the stone walls in crystalline patterns that shouldn't exist. Kyle's eyes tracked the ice, then dropped to her wrists, where the cracks in the iron now glowed with pale blue light. What are you? Veyrath. The word came out barely a whisper. Extinct, supposedly. His grip on her didn't loosen. Veyrath don't exist. They were wiped out centuries ago because they... Understanding hit him like a physical blow. They consumed their mates, fed on alpha dominance until there was nothing left. Now you understand why I hide. She tried to pull away, but he held firm. Why the cuffs stay on? Why this... She gestured between them, at the bond still screaming in her blood. Can never happen. You've known what you are this whole time and you stayed. His voice had gone dangerously quiet. Why? Because I'm a fool. The admission hurt more than it should. Because some part of me hoped the bond would choose someone else, anyone else, that I could watch from the shadows and you'd be safe and I could suffer in silence. His laugh was bitter. How noble, how monumentally stupid. The words stung. What would you have had me do? Announce myself? Let you claim me so I could slowly kill you? At least this way. This way we both suffer. He backed her harder against the wall, his body a line of heat against her ice-cold skin. This way I marry Isolde while bonded to you. This way you hide in walls, feeling everything I feel with her. This way we're both in hell. Yes. Her voice broke on the word. Footsteps echoed from the main hall. Voices calling his name, Isolde's shrill demand to know where he'd gone. Kyle's forehead dropped to hers, eyes closed, jaw clenched. I have to go back. I know. I have to finish the ceremony. I know. And then I have to spend the rest of my life pretending I don't feel you. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her bottom lip. Pretending every touch from her isn't wrong, pretending I don't dream about you, pretending this bond doesn't exist. Elira didn't watch Kyle marry Isolde. She locked herself in the deepest storage room she could find, pressed her forehead against cold stone, and felt every moment of the ceremony through the bond that shouldn't exist. The vows, the binding, the kiss that sealed it, each one landed like a knife between her ribs. The cuffs burned ice cold, cracks spreading like spiderwebs across the iron. Whatever they'd been holding back was waking, drawn out by pain and jealousy and the catastrophic pull of a mate bond being violated by another woman's claim. 3 days later, she was still bleeding power in frozen waves. The storage rooms had become a winter wasteland, frost thick enough that the other servants avoided the entire wing. She needed to leave, disappear before the cuffs failed completely, before she became the monster she'd spent 19 years hiding. Found you! Elira's head snapped up. A man stood in the doorway, dark-haired and sharp-featured, wearing clothes too fine for Thornhaven and carrying himself like gravity was optional. His eyes were strange, grey shot through with silver, old in a way that made her instincts scream danger. You don't belong here, she said, power leaking into her voice despite the cuffs. Neither do you, Veyrath. He smiled, and it was a wolf's expression on a human face. I'm Azrin Valdis Knight, and you're dying. The blunt assessment hit harder because it was true. The bond with Kyle was killing her slowly, the mate claim corrupted by his marriage to Isolde. Her body was rejecting the incomplete bond, the Veyrath power turning inward, consuming her from the inside out. I know, she said simply. The cuffs are failing. When they break completely, you'll freeze everything within a mile, including your precious Alpha and his new bride. Azrin moved closer, seemingly unbothered by the cold that had other wolves shivering. Unless you come with me. Why would you help me? Help? His laugh was dark. I'm not offering charity, I'm offering a deal. Your power for my protection. Your obedience for my training. You learn to control what you are before you kill everyone you've ever known. Elira studied him, the cuffs pulsing with fracture light. And if I refuse? Then Cale Thornhaven dies screaming in 3 days when the iron finally breaks and you lose control during his mating heat with Isolde. Azrin's expression didn't change. Your choice. Come willingly and learn to survive. Or stay here and murder the man you're bonded to. The bond pulsed, and somewhere in the stronghold she felt Kyle's awareness spike. He'd sensed her distress, was probably already moving toward her, despite the wife waiting in his bed. He can't know where I've gone, Elira said. He won't. Azrin extended his hand. The bond will go quiet once you're beyond the territorial borders. He'll think you're dead. Easier that way. Easier. The word tasted like poison, but when Cale's footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, getting closer, Elira took Azrin's hand. Azrin's sanctuary wasn't a citadel. It was a prison disguised as salvation. The mountain fortress sat at the edge of Pack territories, carved into stone that hummed with old magic and older chains. The cuffs come off tonight, Azrin said, leading her through corridors that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. Your control is non-existent. We need to see what you actually are before we can teach you to leash it. Elira's entire body went cold. If they come off, I'll kill you. You'll try. He said it like he was looking forward to the attempt. But I've survived worse than one feral Veyrath, and I have wards that will contain the damage. The chamber he brought her to was circular, walls inscribed with symbols that made her eyes hurt. At the center sat a chair carved from black ice that never melted, fitted with restraints that pulsed with the same wrong magic as the symbols. Absolutely not. Elira backed toward the door. Azrin moved faster than physics should allow, blocking her exit. You don't have a choice. The bond with Kyle is corrupted. You can feel it, can't you? The way it pulls and tears instead of settling. Veyrath bonds require consummation within the first moon cycle or they turn poisonous. His smile was cruel. You're 3 days past that deadline. The power is eating you alive because it has nowhere to go. She could feel it, the way her chest ached constantly now, the way cold leaked from her skin in waves, the way her thoughts sometimes fractured into whispers that weren't entirely her own. Sit, Azrin commanded, and there was weight in the word that made her knees buckle. She caught herself on the chair's arm, fury overriding fear. Don't use compulsion on me. Then stop pretending you have options. He circled her like she was prey. The cuffs come off. We see what breaks loose. I contain it, study it, and teach you to control it. Or you can leave, return to Thornhaven, and freeze your mate to death when the bond corruption reaches critical mass during his breeding heat with his wife. The image hit her like a fist. Kyle in bed with Isolde, the mating heat activating, and Elira's power detonating in response, ice spreading through the stronghold until everyone inside became frozen statues. You're a bastard, she whispered, and you're a weapon without a trigger lock. Azrin gestured to the chair. Sit, willingly or otherwise. Elira sat. The restraints snapped closed around her wrists and ankles before she could change her mind, black ice burning against her skin in a way that felt almost good against the corrupted bond's fever. Azrin knelt before her, hands hovering over the fractured iron cuffs. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts. His eyes met hers, something almost like sympathy flickering there. Not like this. He touched the cuffs. They shattered. The power that had been locked away for 19 years erupted like a dam breaking. Ice detonated outward in a sphere of absolute zero, flash freezing everything within 20 feet. The restraints shattered. The wards on the walls cracked and screamed. Azrin was thrown backward, slamming into stone hard enough to leave cracks. Elira couldn't stop it. Her body convulsed as the Veyrath nature took over completely, not a shift into wolf form, but something older and worse. Her skin turned translucent, veins glowing blue-white beneath the surface. Her eyes went completely white, no iris, no pupil, just frost and hunger. The temperature in the chamber dropped so fast that moisture in the air crystallized into snow. Elira. Azrin's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with command. Listen to me. You need to breathe. You need to... She lunged. Faster than human, stronger than wolf, driven by instinct that predated civilization. Her hand closed around his throat, ice spreading from her palm across his skin in crystalline patterns. He didn't fight back, didn't use magic to defend himself, just held still as she pinned him against the wall, her power trying to drain him, to feed on whatever made him strong enough to survive her. That's it, he said, voice steady despite the ice crawling up his neck. Take what you need. I can handle it. The words penetrated the feral haze. Elira's white eyes focused on his face, seeing him clearly for the first time since the cuffs broke. He wasn't afraid. Wasn't even particularly concerned. He was letting her feed. What are you? The question came out distorted, her voice layered with something inhuman. Old. His smile was sharp despite the ice reaching his jaw. Older than Veyrath. Old enough to survive this. The bond with Kyle chose that moment to pulse, distant but agonizing, a reminder of what she'd left behind. The corrupted connection flared, and Elira felt it clearly now. Kyle was in breeding heat with Isolde, the biological imperative triggered by their marriage bond, and it was tearing Elira apart from the inside out. She screamed, the sound shattering what remained of the chamber's windows. Ice spread in fractal patterns across every surface, consuming stone and metal and magic alike. Azrin's hand came up despite the ice, cupping her face with fingers that should have been frozen solid. You can feel him with her. That's why the corruption is accelerating. The bond is trying to complete through you while he's mating with someone else. Make it stop. She was barely holding human form, her body flickering between flesh and something made entirely of winter and rage. I can't sever a mate bond. No one can. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, the touch burning warm against her frozen skin. But I can give you something else to anchor to, something that won't corrupt, won't kill you. What? His eyes met hers, and there was something predatory in them that matched her own feral nature. Me. You want to bond with me? Elira's voice was still layered, still inhuman, but clarity was returning through the ice madness. Why? Because unclaimed Veyrath are chaos. Azrin's hand remained on her face despite the frost spreading across his skin. Because you need an anchor that can survive what you are. Because I have use for a weapon no one else can wield. The honesty was almost refreshing. No pretty lies about fate or destiny or love. Just brutal truth. He wanted her power, and she needed to not die. What happens if I bond with you while still connected to Kale? It severs the original bond, violently. His expression hardened. He'll feel it like losing a limb. It will hurt him, badly, and there's no guarantee he survives the shock. Elira's white eyes flickered, humanity fighting with the Veyrath nature that wanted to feed, to drain, to consume. Somewhere distant she could feel Kyle through the corrupted bond, his heat reaching its peak, his body claiming Isolde while every instinct screamed wrong, wrong, wrong. He'd chosen his duty, his kingdom, his political marriage. She could choose her survival. Do it, she whispered. Azrin moved faster than thought, spinning them so her back hit the wall, his body pinning hers with calculated pressure. This won't be gentle. Veyrath bonds form through dominance exchange. I have to break you down enough to accept the claim, and you have to feed enough to recognize me as viable. I don't care. Her hands fisted in his shirt, ice spreading across the fabric. Just make it stop hurting. His mouth crashed against hers, and it was nothing like Kyle's desperate kiss had been. This was conquest, domination, a battle for control fought with teeth and will, and ancient power meeting older magic in a collision that made the air scream. Elira's nature surged, trying to drain him, to freeze him solid, to consume everything that made him strong. But Azrin didn't weaken, didn't falter. Whatever he was, he weathered her power like stone weathering a storm, enduring, unyielding, letting her crash against him until she exhausted herself. When he pulled back, his lips were blue with frost, but his eyes were triumphant. Again, he commanded, feed until you can't anymore. Break yourself against me until there's nothing left but the bond. She lunged for his throat, teeth scraping skin, her power pouring into him in waves of lethal cold. He let her, held still while she tried to kill him, while the Veyrath instinct demanded she drain him dry. But he didn't die. Didn't even seem particularly bothered. And somewhere in the savage exchange, something shifted. The bond with Kyle, corrupted and poisonous and tearing her apart, began to fray. Each pull of power from Azrin weakened the connection to her original mate, replacing it with something darker, colder, infinitely more dangerous. Kyle felt it the moment the bond started severing. Kyle was with Isolde when the bond began to die. The breeding heat had him pinned, biology overriding every shred of control, his body moving on pure instinct while his mind screamed in horror. Isolde beneath him, her scent all wrong, her touch like poison. But the mating imperative didn't care about right or wrong. It only knew claim, breed, complete. Then agony ripped through his chest. The bond with Elira, the one he'd tried to ignore, tried to bury under duty and political necessity, began unraveling like a rope fraying under impossible tension. Each thread that snapped felt like a bone breaking, and there were thousands of threads. He collapsed off Isolde with a sound that wasn't quite human, clutching his chest as the bond tore itself apart from the inside out. "Kyle!" Isolde's voice was distant, annoyed. "What's wrong with you?" He couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The bond was being severed, but not cleanly. It was being ripped out, replaced with something else, someone else claiming what should have been his. Through the fragmenting connection, he felt Elira. Felt her terror transmuting into surrender, felt her power feeding on someone who wasn't him, bonding with someone who could survive what she was. Felt her choosing someone else. The final thread snapped. Kyle screamed, the sound tearing from his throat with enough force to shatter the bedroom windows. His wolf howled in anguish, feeling the mate bond die, feeling half his soul ripped away and given to another. Isolde scrambled backward, finally showing fear. What's happening? But Kyle was beyond words. He shifted involuntarily, his wolf form massive and mindless with grief, and he was crashing through the window before conscious thought could stop him. He ran toward the mountain fortress where he could still feel Elira's presence like a dying star, toward the bond that was almost gone, toward the female who'd chosen survival over slowly killing him. Behind him, Isolde's screams for the guards faded into nothing. Elira felt Kyle running toward her through the dying bond, felt his anguish, his rage, his devastating grief as the connection between them withered to almost nothing. "He's coming," she gasped against Azrin's mouth. Let him." Azrin's teeth scraped down her throat, marking her, claiming her in ways that made the new bond flare bright and vicious. Let him see what he lost. Let him see what I claimed. The cruelty of it should have bothered her. But the Veyrath nature was fully awake now, and it understood power, understood dominance, understood that Kyle had chosen duty over her, and now would pay the price. She fed harder, pulling from Azrin until frost covered them both, until the chamber became a winter wasteland, until the old bond with Kyle was barely a whisper. Kyle crashed through the fortress doors in wolf form, following her scent through corridors that tried to confuse him. When he finally reached the bonding chamber, what he saw stopped him cold. Elira pinning Azrin against the wall, her translucent skin glowing with stolen power, her white eyes focused entirely on the male who could survive her. Azrin's hands possessive on her waist, his expression triumphant as he met Kyle's gaze over her shoulder. And between them, the new bond, dark and complete and absolutely unbreakable. Kyle shifted back to human, naked and shaking. Elira. She turned her head slowly, and when her white eyes met his, there was no recognition, no warmth, just the cold assessment of a predator deciding if something was prey. "Too late, Alpha," Azrin said, voice rich with satisfaction. "She's mine now." The white faded from Elira's eyes slowly, humanity bleeding back in as the Veyrath feeding frenzy subsided. When she finally saw Kale clearly, naked, shaking, devastation written across every line of his body, something cracked in her chest. Not the bond. That was gone, severed and replaced. Something deeper. "You came," she whispered, and her voice was her own again. "Of course I came." His words broke in the middle. Did you really think I could just let you go?" Azrin's hands tightened possessively on her waist. "She didn't let you do anything. She made a choice. The bond is complete. She's mine now." "Is she?" Kyle's eyes never left Elira's face. "Or did you manipulate a dying woman into bonding with you so you could own a weapon?" The accusation landed. Elira felt it in the way Azrin went still behind her, in the way his grip shifted from possessive to restraining. "It was survival," she said, but the words tasted hollow. "The corruption was killing me. You were with Isolde and I was suffering because of choices I made. Kyle took a step forward and Azrin's power flared in warning. Choices I've regretted every moment since. I married her because I thought it would protect you. I thought if I completed the political bond, the council would leave you alone. I thought, his voice cracked, I thought I was saving you. By mating with another woman. The bitterness surprised her with its intensity. By trying to make them think the bond was dormant, that we could both move on. He laughed, and it was broken. I was an idiot. The bond doesn't work like that. It just made everything worse. Azrin's voice was cold against her ear. Touching story. But she's bonded to me now. Whatever you had is dead. Leave, Alpha, before I make you. Elira felt the new bond pulse, dark and demanding, nothing like the mate bond with Kale had been. That had felt like coming home. This felt like chains made of ice and necessity. She looked at Azrin over her shoulder. What are you? His smile was sharp. Does it matter? You're bound to me now. 3 months, Elira. Give me 3 months to teach you control, to show you what you can become, and then decide if you want to run back to the wolf who chose politics over you. That's not, Kyle started. 3 months, Azrin repeated, cutting him off. And if she still wants you after that, after seeing what power really is, after learning what she's truly capable of, his expression turned predatory. Then we'll discuss terms for releasing her. You can release a Veyrath bond. Elira's voice sharpened. I can do many things, little weapon. Azrin's fingers traced patterns on her hip that made frost bloom across her skin. But everything has a price. Kyle's hands clenched into fists. I'm not leaving her here with you. You don't have a choice. Azrin's power filled the room, heavy and ancient and absolutely uncompromising. The bond is sealed. She needs training. And you need to go back to your wife and your kingdom and live with the consequences of thinking you could outsmart fate. The cruelty of it made Elira flinch. But before she could speak, Azrin's hand cupped her jaw, turning her face back to his. 3 months, he said softly, for her alone. Learn what you are. Learn what you can take. Learn to survive in a world that will always fear you. His thumb brushed her bottom lip. And then decide which wolf you want to keep.